Hi, everyone. Firstly, happy New Year. Today is January 1st of 2025. And oh my gosh, 2024, I don't know about you guys, but I feel like it just flew by. So that said, today I have a very special episode for you guys. So today is episode number 25. And as you guys are aware, we have switched to a monthly schedule. And in this episode, I am so incredibly proud to welcome my guest speaker, Amir Haryalchi. And Amir, again, if I messed up your last name, my sincere apologies. So, in today's episode, yeah,
No, you
was it
got it
okay?
right.
Terrific,
Yeah.
terrific. Well, so today's episode
Yeah,
for
yeah.
for our listeners is called Beyond Deadlines, the moral compass of project management. So today we're going to talk about ethics. We're going to talk about morality in project management. And this is something that I feel is something that we maybe don't speak about as often as perhaps we should. And so I am so incredibly excited that Amir is going to take us through this discussion. But before we get into that, Amir, why don't you introduce yourself to our listeners?
Yeah, of course. Hello again, and hello to our audience. My name is Amir Haryalchi, as you just said, and inherently, I'm an engineer. I consider myself an engineer and also a scientist because I studied material science. I had the privilege to study in one of the Iran's best universities, Sharif University of Technology, and get a master's degree in material science. And now I'm in the final stages of my second master's in Birmingham City University. And right now I'm studying project management. I used to work for several years as a quality manager for Alpha Grinding Media Company. And beyond all of that, I consider myself a philosophy enthusiast. My mother always tells me that if you weren't an engineer, you were going to be broken because you are going to uh, think about why is there something rather than nothing. So I'm actually really happy that I got into the engineering stuff and I have the privilege to talk about philosophy in
No,
this podcast rather than
I
doing it as a career. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
yeah, no, I love that. And again, so you Amir, you shared you're originally from Iran. Uh, did I say that correctly?
Iran. Yeah.
Iran. Okay, wonderful.
Yeah.
And so for folks who are listening, I had the very great pleasure of meeting Amir when I was in Birmingham speaking for PMI UK, which Amir is a member of. So Amir, so glad to have you on here. Also, I think our internet is cutting out a little bit. I'm not sure if that's on my side or your side, but no problem. We will navigate through it. So that
Yeah, of
said,
course.
yeah.
Maybe we can just have a pause at the end of our sentences so we can communicate better. Would you
That
agree?
that is a great idea. That is a great idea. Thank you, Amir.
Yeah, and I want to state that the pleasure was mine. It was great to meet you at that and getting to know you and know about your stories. Wow, that was really inspiring. And
Thank
I would be happy to have a cup of coffee with you whenever you're back in Birmingham.
yeah, absolutely. I would love that as well. Thank you for saying that, Amir. And thank you for having been in attendance when I was giving my keynote speech. So truly appreciate you. So
Yeah.
that's so Amir, so that said, I want to just kind of jump right into this invaluable conversation because I think it is crucial that this discussion be had. So Amir, when we're in the context of project management, right? How would you, in your opinion, how do you define ethics? And again, in the context of project management.
Boy, what a serious question. See, ethic and ethical decisions, ethical decisions are a major part of our day-to-day life, and we may not be thinking about them while we make our decisions. It's
Yeah.
something inherent in ourselves. And there are different frameworks that we can talk about when we are talking about ethics. And the real problem is we don't know how are we going to choose it. Are you familiar with the story of Euthyphro?
No, no.
In it's a story by Plato, and he is stating this conversation in between Euthyphro and Socrates, his master. And the story goes like this. Uh, Socrates was a philosopher well known by everybody, and he was in court for some reasons that is not related to our conversation. And during his court trial, he faced another guy called Euthyphro. And
Okay.
Euthyphro was trying to put his own father on trial, okay? And the conversation starts here. It's a really long conversation, and at the end, uh, Socrates asks a really profound question. He asks that how do you define that what your dad has done is something bad, is something immoral? How can you say that? Euthyphro says that it's hated by gods. The action that my father has done is hated by gods. Socrates says that, no, you cannot answer me properly. You're not understanding the question. Why it is bad? Euthyphro again doesn't understand the question, and at
Mhm.
last he asked this question in a very good manner. He asked that is something moral because the gods love them, or do the gods love them because they're moral? He's questioning this thing that is there objective morality out there somewhere or not? Obviously, on those times, objective morality was related to gods. And
Mhm.
I don't know if you're a religious person. People who are religious, I am not, but they would connect this to God and connect that to objective morality. But I think the right answer to this question is that whether if there is an authority that wants to connect itself with the morality, it should find its way. As we have it on our title, there's a compass inside all of us, and we have to find our way through morality. It's an exploration, it's a journey. And I hope that in this conversation, we can make a journey and we can talk about it a bit more. Let me
Yeah,
ask you a question.
sure.
Why let's think about it that we know what morality is, what is
Hmm.
ethical. Okay, let's assume that we know that. Why should we act ethically? Why do you think that we should act morally? Why not just be immoral? What's your answer to this question?
That's a great question. I've never been asked that. I've never been asked that. Um, to me, and of course, this is my opinion, and I would like to think that this would be the overwhelming opinion of the majority of individuals. I think the reason morality is so important is because it's the right thing to do, right? So we know, so let's just use some very simple examples, right? We know we should not lie, right? We know we should not cheat. We know we should not steal. We know we should treat others the way they should be treated. I say this often. I have individuals, right, that maybe I'm not fond of. I would even go as far as to say, I might even despise them. And this is a very extreme example. But if these individuals ever came to my home and they were thirsty, would I give them something to drink? And the answer is yes, I would, because that is my morality. For me, I think it's important to have morality because it is, in my opinion, the right thing to do, but also to have morality without the fear of punishment. So you talked about religion, right? You talked about in your example how a lot of folks did the things that they did because maybe they were afraid of the gods or what have you. To me, morality is doing the right thing with even when nobody is watching, having integrity. And that is the simplest way that I would explain or that I see morality.
First of all, I have to emphasize that my view of morality almost exactly aligns with the thing that you just said, because I think that you should do the right thing, but whatever it is, we're not delving into that yet. You
Yeah,
should do the right thing, even though nobody's watching you. You should not do
absolutely.
the right thing because of the fear of punishment or a good thing that is going to be rewarded to you. But the thing is, the second thing that I want to say is that I played a little trick on you, and I'm sorry about that. I wanted to
Okay.
say that your answer is actually what Euthyphro said to Socrates. The question is here that how do we know what's right and wrong? The problem with most of us is that we are raised in families that are that's the goodness, the its nature. So we are raised by the things that are uh, internet connection is unstable. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. No, I heard you just fine.
Yeah, I was saying. The thing is that we don't actually think about what should be the framework for us. What is it that is the base, the foundation? And I want to give an argument today. I had an argument in mind to give you to that not only works for people like us who consider themselves as moral people, but also for other people who are not acting morally and are actually ruining this world and are ruining our resources. And maybe some of them are in politics and they're running governments and things like that. I
Yeah.
think I have an argument, and I consider it as a solid argument to say that you should act morally because it is actually going to be good for you. Would you like to hear this argument?
Absolutely. Please share.
Yeah. Are you familiar with game theory?
I'm not, no.
Yeah, game theory is associated with John Nash's work, the great mathematician, and I'll give you a gist of it. In game theory, and by game, he doesn't mean like football or just, it's not just that. It's about all the situations that the decision makers are involved. It's about the strategic interaction between the decision makers. Okay, if we divide all of these situations that involves decision makers into the categories that are zero sum and non-zero sum, and I'll give you an example by zero sum and non-zero sum. A zero sum game would be like, for example, football, soccer. In football, a team wins +1, the other
Mm-hmm.
team loses. The sum will be zero, or it's a draw, 0-0. The sum is always zero. But there are some situations that we have non-zero sum games. We actually can both win. Both of the decision makers can win. This is where the game theory comes into place, and it's actually about both of them. But this is what most people do not consider, and it has many mathematical equations that are really sophisticated, but it can be simplified in a really easy game. Consider Parmjit and Amir are two gang members, two really bad people, and we are arrested by some authorities, and police are interrogating each of us individually, and we do not have any information from one another. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
now think that we have two options. We can stay silent or cooperate, or we can betray or defect. So there is cooperation and there's defect. If both of us cooperate and stay silent, they are going to give us each 1 year of prison. If each of us defects and the other cooperates, I, as a defector, go free, and you, as the person who stayed silent, gets 4 years of prison. And in the third state, if both of the players defect, we are going to get 7 years of prison. So there are three possible outcomes, actually four, but two of them are the same. What would the best action be if you were in this situation? What would you do? Would you stay silent or would you betray?
That is such a, well, firstly, it's a great example. And it's funny because I would never be in that kind of a situation. So it's so it's interesting to think about.
Obviously.
I would stay silent, probably. Yeah, I don't
Yeah,
yeah, more than likely that is.
that would be the that would be the right thing to do. But consider this: if you stay silent and the other person defects, you would get four. That's the risk that you have to take. This, if you apply this really simple game that I just told you in real life, you can see that we are dealing with this game in every situation. We can lose a little bit of our time for the good of the others. For example, it is like the first situation that I told you, and but gain something more. This is called delayed gratification. When we think about this in a longer period of time, if you just consider this as one game, as one situation, some would argue that it would be great that you defect. But life is just a series of these games again and again and again. Thousands and thousands of this game in different situations is going to be run. If you are a moral person, so you would cooperate in any of these situations,
Mhm.
it is argued that you are going to be better off at the end, because if there are hundred thousands of this game and we play to AI, to artificial intelligence machines to play with each other, it is actually been demonstrated that the machine that cooperates more is actually more, the situation is actually more beneficial for itself. So back to the arguments that I was going to give you. Based on game theory, based on John Nash's game theory, we know that the life is a non-zero sum game. So if someone is an immoral person, they would be better off if they acted morally, not because the right thing to do. That's really beneficial for themselves. So if somebody is really selfish and wants to have a better future and just thinks about themselves, it is actually good for them to be moral rather than immoral.
Sure.
So I think that morality is actually really beneficial, not just because it's a hard thing to do in a short term, but because actually it is really beneficial if we consider it in long term.
Sure, absolutely. And I agree. So immorality might have short-term benefits, right? Might have and that the individual who is maybe being immoral, they may see that things have worked out in their favor for in the immediate future. But as you just mentioned, long term, there are going to be repercussions, and long term, uh, that individual will not be able to evade those repercussions and those consequences. So I couldn't agree more. And so, Amir, so you gave a perfect example of ethical dilemmas, right? In that example you gave, right? If both of us were arrested, which neither one of us would ever be, if both
Of
of us
course,
were, right? If
it's
both
just a
of us,
game.
right? But in the project management world, right? Do you have, Amir, any examples of maybe some ethical dilemmas that either project manage that you've seen project managers face or that you feel that they might face? And then how do you feel that they should navigate that ethical dilemma?
Actually, I was going to get to this part when I was giving that example. For example, think that the project status is not something that is going to make the stakeholders happy. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
that's always happening. You as a project manager might have tons of memories of that.
Yeah.
What is the moral thing to do? Should we represent the situation as it actually is and make them unhappy, or should we do the misrepresentation of project status?
No.
I know some of the project managers, my coworkers, most of them, unfortunately, I'm really sorry and sad to say that, but when I look in the society, most of the project managers, sadly, choose the first thing. They want to misrepresent the situation, and they want to think about, okay, we're gonna do something later. We're gonna figure it out later. But in my view, honesty is a virtue. So if you just represent that situation as it actually is, in long term, it is going to be really beneficial for you. Because if in short term, you just, I'm just saying by the figure of speech, fool the stakeholders. Okay, then what? Then the stakeholders would find out about this
Sure.
misrepresentation, and you would be as an untrusted project manager who is going to have this stain on their shirt as a project manager, shirt of project management, and it is going to get your clothes dirty in my view. So, and there are lots of other examples in this particular example that I just gave you. For example, if you misrepresent the situation of the project, it might actually lead to a place that is outside of the hands of the project manager, and make the situation very bad that there is nothing can be done. So if you represent the situation as it actually is and don't try to fool the stakeholders, this is going to be really beneficial for you. I have a list of that actually. Uh, Another example that I wanted to give you is a place that we have the conflict of interest. I don't
Mhm.
know if my examples are aligned with your experiences. I just took some of thought about some of my previous experiences, and took some of the phrases that I would see is a good title for that example out. So you tell me if it's a good example. Sometimes you don't want to work with a person or a
Mhm.
contractor, but they are actually the best contractor to work with. You know that if you work with that contractor, it would be better off for the project at the end. But you really hate the guts of that guy. You don't want, you can't stand the face of that person, because maybe he's not a more moral person, whatever. But he does his thing right. What is the right thing to do in this situation? Just because you know that person is immoral, is this supposed to affect the way that they are going to do that thing is related to your project, or should you just ignore them and find another contractor that might be worse than them? I never found the answer to this question, and I think that the reason is that my opinions have effect on my decisions, because not every time we can stick to the policies that are given to us by the authorities like PMI Code of Ethics and Conduct,
Yeah.
or the policies of the company that you're working for. and your personal judgment is going to affect the decision, the outcome. So I would love to know your opinion about this matter.
Sure, absolutely, and that's a great question. So I think I'm a little divided on this, but I tend to sway in one direction. If that contractor that your example again, I'm working with a contractor. It is the perfect contractor for me to execute and close and deliver on this project. If I loathe working with this contractor because I know that this contractor tends to be very immoral. They tend to cut corners, etc. And I know that there may or may not be another option available in the market. What would I do? I think I would give two things. Number one, I would give that contractor a chance because at the end of the day, it's not about me, right? It's not about me. It's not.
It's assume that you know them to be a not good person. I'm just talking about the personality. Just think of them as a really bad person that does a really good job.
That would be difficult because I would think that if they are that bad of a person, right, and I know that to be true, then I would think that they would also probably make unethical or immoral decisions in the project. They may be good at delivering on the project, but what if, because of their immorality and the way they operate, they are now cutting corners, they are taking bribes from maybe a third party company. So these are all things that I would have to take into consideration. It would be very, and then I have to also consider that this contractor is going to be working with the various stakeholders on my project, right? They're working with my project team. They are working with my sponsor. And so there's several individuals that this individual is going to touch in their communication. And I don't know what they're going to be saying, what they're not going to be saying. Um, I just I don't I think I would try to find another contractor. I My initial response is to give them a chance, but if that is what I know to be true, um, one of the things that I've always believed, and I've seen this to be true, is when you have somebody in a project team that is, again, unethical, immoral, is consistently doing and maybe saying things that we both know are not okay, that individual becomes a cancer to the project team and a cancer to the project. And for me, I think it is better to remove them from a project early on or not have them on the project to begin with. So my thought
The
would be to
problem
find
in
somebody.
my case was
Hmm.
that they proved to be really professional in their work, and that was it made me really hard to decide about that because the work was really professional, and I knew that they won't cut corners. They had the greatest quality because my field of work was manufacturing, and the in manufacturing, when a specific part has low quality, it will seriously affect the bigger picture. So you
Sure.
have to
Yeah.
make sure that the quality of every little aspect has been checked. So though that individual's company was the one company that I was sure that would not cut corners, and that was the thing that would make me in a really hard situation. And I want to give you another example, and then we can move on to another dilemma that is really thought-provoking. Sometimes we have various stakeholders in a single project that they
Hmm.
have different expectations, and you don't know to how to balance the stakeholder expectations, and which leaning to on which side would be the ethical thing to do, because both of them are stakeholders and both of them have something to say. For example, if I want to make it more clear,
Hmm.
sometimes in football clubs, it's funny, it's my second example of football tonight. In football clubs, you can consider fans as one part of the stakeholders, and you can consider the, for example, one of the, or both of these groups are right about the stuff that they're saying. For example, some of them want the new stadium to be really big and be really fancy, but the people in the management would say that we don't have enough budget to make this the stadium really big to be good for everyone. So I, as a project manager, should lean towards which side? Should I always consider budget, time, etc., everything that is related to our fans who don't care about this stuff, but the club actually belongs to them. So in every project, these types of things happens, that it's really a dilemma, and you can't say that this particular thing is the most ethical thing to do, and period, done. I think that it's impossible to give a concrete answer to these types of questions.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. I feel the same way. I think it would be difficult, yeah, to have a response to that. But I do also think that, you will always have stakeholders with varying opinions, and stakeholders that don't agree. But as the project manager, right, our goal is to, again, execute that project and successfully close it. And while consistently monitoring and controlling that project and ensuring that we are paying attention to the budget of the project, we to make sure things are in scope, that things are items are being or tasks are being delivered on time, or deliverables are being delivered on time. So I think those are all things that we always have to consider. But again, yeah, that we will always have. I'm kind of repeating myself now, but yeah, we will always have varying opinions from stakeholders.
You know, I just realized that in our ethical frameworks, we have a you tend to stick to the frameworks that has been given to you.
I
So
do.
if the framework, correct me if I'm telling it wrong, but I think that one's own judgment is a thing that sometimes has to be considered. For example, I again go back to the youth afro thing that I said in the beginning. So let me rephrase it in project management language. Take PMI code of ethic and conduct as the divine thing that we have for ethics, okay?
Yeah.
As the, I don't know, as the book. And is the should be and conducts because it is inherently right, or is something right because the book says so? So, and we don't have to judge it by our own mind. Whatever the book says is right, or it is everything that has been said is right. So the book took it from the righteousness that has is somewhere. You know,
Well, you
I think that there are no books. Sorry to interrupt you. There are no books that have this type of authority that have everything in themselves correct. So you as an individual have to question everything. Of course, we have to abide to the laws and the policies. There's no doubt in that. But
Mhm.
as the person who is invited to your podcast, I think I have to sometimes play the devil's advocate role and ask this type of questions, because on our day-to-day lives, at the end of the day, we all do whatever we're told to do, and we deliver the projects on time and the budget, and we meet the stakeholders' uh, expectations from us. But it is good to just sometimes step back and think about the things that we're doing on a daily basis and judge them by just question everything. As I just asked you in the first place, why should we even act morally? We do act morally, but why should we? If we have the right answer to this question, it
Mm-hmm.
helps us to make our decisions even stronger and have a more solid arguments for the things that we do. I'm sure
Yeah.
that you agree with me.
Yeah, I do. I do. And one point about that. So you bring up another great point. So yes, the PMI code of ethics and code of conduct and I'm forgetting it's if it's a code of conduct and ethics, but
I think
so
it's PMI conduct, ethics, and conduct. It's something like that.
okay.
Yeah, I'm not
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. So I should know this. Sorry.
You're a
Uh,
PMI member. I'm not.
I know, and so you have to excuse me. I've been away for a month, so I need to. I'm just getting back.
It's all right.
But I was going to say something important to remember is yes, absolutely, we should always use our yes, we should take a step back and we should always use our own judgment because every situation is going to be unique, right? Every situation is going to be unique. But I will say, similar to the PMBOK, right? Similar to the PMBOK, that artifact that PMI has created, in my opinion, that is not something that is set in stone, right? That is meant to serve as a framework, that is meant to serve as a guide, right? And that is actually something that I refer back to often, especially if in my mind I'm questioning, should I do this? Is it okay that I do this? What does PMI say about this? I always refer back to that guide. But at the end of the day, to your point, I have to use my own best judgment, right? And my rule of thumb is if I'm questioning, is this right or wrong to do? There's a good chance it's something maybe I shouldn't be doing, right? And I think that and that's even in I joke about this, even in relationships, right? I tell individuals that if as an individual in a relationship, if I have to question is this okay to do? If I have to question, well, would I do this if my partner was standing right in front of me? And if the answer is no, I wouldn't, then there's a chance that is something I should not be doing. So it's always, questioning yourself, but recognizing that every situation is unique, and that, again, that artifact really is a framework, and it's supposed to really serve as a guide for us as far as how to
I'm
conduct
really happy
ourselves.
that you raised this point because the thing that I want to ask the listeners to do is to think about this. You said that we have to think a step aside and think about what's good. Okay, so the methods, for example, the frameworks like PMI's code of conduct, the plus model. I'm sure there are many others, and I can't remember the names. There are methods. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
when you step back, there's the foundation, there's the philosophy, and sometimes what we do is that we neglect the philosophy because people are not all interested in the deep questions and in philosophy itself. So the thing that I wanted to do just talk about some of the famous philosophical frameworks for ethics. For example, I want to start with a funny one. What's Nietzsche's answer to it's obviously not his as it's going to be represented, but actually it is. So it's yes and no. Just
Mm-hmm.
wait for it. Nietzsche's answer to the question, why should we be moral, is that just don't. Morality is for losers. And obviously, he doesn't mean that. And the thing is
Right.
really deeper than that. But we have different philosophical aspects. For example, we have utilitarianism that says that uh, we have to consider the maximization of pleasure. So if we have pain on one hand and pleasure on the other hand, if we combine all of this together, the sum has to be something. It shouldn't be something negative. It has there has to be something remained at the end, if
Hmm.
I oversimplified it. So utilitarianism is one philosophy. Obviously, we have deontology, that is duty based. It says that you have to focus on the duties. And for example, as a father, you have to provide for your children and your family. Why? Because it is your duty. So duty-based philosophy is one. But in between all of these different philosophical aspects, I just wanted to give my opinion of what is the best moral framework. And I would be happy if you gave me yours too as well. I think that you're familiar with Mr. Sam Harris. He's a neuroscientist and a philosopher, and I'm taking this out of his the concepts that he talks about. It is not
Hmm.
mine. The thing that Sam Harris says is that think about the worst possible situation that any individual can be in. Think about the all of the beings, all of the sentient beings being in the most pain imaginable. So if we consider this imaginary situation as pure evil, as the worst of the worst, and this is the bottom line,
Hmm.
everything that we do that makes us away from this bottom line is a moral thing to do. For example, if you see an animal is suffering, if you do something that animal is not suffering anymore, take it to a vet, it actually took out some of the evil, some of the evil is not the right word to say. Some of this suffering out of the universe, it removed it. So we moved away. So morality in my worldview is defined as this, to get away from that worst possible thing. Because if we want to consider a best situation, it is impossible. But if you want to consider a worse situation and get away from that, it is an imaginable thing. So if we put this philosophy into action, and as a project manager, you have this philosophy inside your head, and then when you face a dilemma in your workplace, you use those methods
Hmm.
based on that philosophy that you have inherently inside yourself. In this way, it's highly unlikely that you make the wrong choice. But if you haven't thought about the philosophy of the base of your morality, it is going to cause some problems. Because not believe in religion, think that the things the religious stuff that has been spread into majority of the people builds their morality as well. And when they face the dilemmas, they would act as though God exists and
Hmm.
somebody is watching them. But it was really great that you raised the points that I want to say now in the beginning of the podcast. If you have the best framework inside your heart, I don't think that it's necessary to have a camera here and somebody assume that somebody is watching you to do the right thing.
Yeah,
You don't need that.
definitely,
You do that
definitely.
because it is the right thing to do.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I such great examples. And I think that is
Yeah.
something, again, as I was sharing earlier, I think that would be the overwhelming consensus of the population, right? That we shouldn't have to have someone watching over us. We shouldn't have to have, as you just mentioned, a camera with its eyes on us all the time for us to do the right thing. I think inherently, I think humans are good, and I think we naturally do the right thing or try to do the right thing most
The
all the
best way
time.
that I would phrase it is that inherently we do have a moral compass inside ourselves.
Yeah.
That when we just look at that compass, it shows us a direction, and it has a tolerance that it's not actually giving you the perfect way to go, but it is somehow guiding you towards a way. That compass's function is like this. And as project managers, we face with stuff like sustainability. That is a really big issue in today's world. After the start of the 21st century, luckily the people started to think about it, to go to conferences, to get on agreements in between governments and think about this stuff. But I think we have to even move forward to that, because it's actually really ethical dilemma, the sustainability thing. And I can give you an example of why I think that it's such a dilemma. We have another game that we played a game about the prisoners. This is another one. Assume that you and I are a two people who have cattle, and we want to send our cattle to a pasture, a big big field to feed our cattle, and they are going to use this cattle as well, and another person and another person. All we have is this little field, and we can choose to expand our cattle and buy more cows and just use this as much as we can, because
Mm-hmm.
Parmjit and Amir were here sooner and have more power and can take more land, can take more of the resources that is in the pasture, and just dry it out and just don't care about other people who are coming here tomorrow and are going to use this pasture and the resources that are inside it. Now we can really easy connect it to the situation that we are in the world. The whole world is just like a little plain field that has some food for some of our cattle, and these resources are not, some of them are not replaceable. So the ethical thing to do is just to put some constraints, and
Mm-hmm.
not to pollute the resources that we have, the clean air, the clean water, and the things that are irreplaceable. We shouldn't use them too much. Just like this common moral dilemma that is called the tragedy of commons.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that example. And Amir, you've given such great examples. Just as you're talking, the light bulb in my mind is just going off, and just such great examples. And it's just a lot to think about, right? Because me, I consider myself a moral person, and it is actually very important for me to do the right thing all the time. But this has given me you know, things to think about, especially in my project management career, right? Where I've faced ethical dilemmas, and maybe how I could face those, how I could maybe navigate and face those dilemmas. So, I know we're getting to the end of our time, and I know, I mean, this is just such a great discussion. I feel like we could just talk about this all day. But I have a question for you. This is a question that I ask all of my guests. And that question is, Amir, so if you were not doing professionally what you do now as an engineer and as a project manager, if you were not in these fields, what would you have wanted to be? So if you think about little Amir, 5 years old, what did you want to be when you grew up?
Yeah, I wanted to be a philosopher, just like Socrates and Plato and Aristotle and I just wanted to just sit and think about these questions and see what is the right answer to them. You know, the very question that I want to find the answer to is that why is there something rather than nothing? So that is related to philosophy. So the answer of your question is to be a philosopher.
I love it. And I could definitely see that in you, especially just in the way that you have, in the examples that you were giving, that I could tell that you've spent a lot of time uh really deep in thought thinking about these exact things. And so I think that's great. So, Amir, and again, we are at the end of our time. And so I want to firstly thank you. So, firstly, let me backtrack. It has been such a pleasure to see you again. I was so happy to have met.
Likewise.
Yeah, thank you. And I was so happy to have met you in Birmingham. You are just you're such a pleasure to speak with and to be around. Um, do you have any final thoughts for our guests that you would like to share?
I just wanted to thank you again, and the pleasure was mine. It was a really great conversation, and I look forward to see you again. Please come to England again. You go all over the world, and recently you were in Dubai. Then next time you have to come to England, come to Birmingham. And I'm hoping to have the privilege to work with you someday, actually. If we could work on the same project one day, maybe in the future, who knows the future, that would be really great. And I really thank you for your time and for your invitation.
You're so welcome, and I would love that as well. Let's put it into the universe. Thank you. Have a wonderful remainder of the day.
Thank you. Thank you. You too. Take
Thank
care.
you. Bye.